Lena had always believed she could handle being alone. Marcus thought moving into an old, abandoned apartment would be the fresh start he needed. But when they met the mirror in the dark hallway, everything changed. Shadows began whispering their names, reflections moved on their own, and something unseen was watching their every step. What they didn't realize was that the apartment wasn't just old, it was alive, and it had been waiting for them both. I moved into the old apartment on the edge of town, believing I had finally found the peace I had been searching for. It was quiet, too quiet perhaps, but that was what I thought I needed. No neighbors knocking on my door, no cars roaring by, no endless voices around me, just silence. The building was worn down, its walls lined with peeling wallpaper and faint stains that no one had cared to clean. But I didn't mind. The rent was cheap, the rooms were big enough for me, and the stillness felt like safety. The first night, however, something felt off. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the other room being the only sound in the whole place. It should have been comforting, but it wasn't. I felt like I wasn't alone. My eyes drifted toward the hallway where a tall mirror stood, leaning against the wall as though someone had placed it there and forgotten it. It wasn't just any mirror. The glass was darker than usual, as if a shadow had been trapped inside it. I walked past it earlier that evening and noticed that my reflection seemed strange. It was me, yes, but not exactly me. The way it moved felt delayed, like it had to think before copying my actions. I brushed it off, told myself it was only the dim lighting above the hallway, but the thought lingered in my mind like a splinter. As I lay in bed, I started hearing faint sounds. Tap, tap, tap. At first I thought it was a branch outside, brushing against the window, but the rhythm was too steady, too deliberate. I held my breath and listened harder. The tapping wasn't coming from outside. It was inside the apartment, from the hallway. No, not just the hallway. It was coming from behind the mirror. Soft, careful taps, like fingertips brushing against the glass. A chill ran through me. I wanted to get up, to check, but my body refused to move. The longer I lay there, the louder it grew, until it was almost a knock. Tap, tap, tap. Then, without warning, it stopped. Silence pressed down on me like a weight, and that silence was worse than the noise. It was as though something had realized I was listening, and it was waiting, holding its breath just as I was. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, that moving into a new place was always unsettling. But the unease didn't fade. I pulled the blanket over my head, heart hammering, trying to drown out every sound and convince myself it was nothing. My eyes squeezed shut, and slowly, exhaustion dragged me toward sleep. That's when it happened. I felt the mattress shift. It was subtle at first, just a small dip at the corner, like someone had sat down beside me. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't dare move. I didn't dare open my eyes. The dip grew deeper, pressing down more firmly, until the weight was undeniable. Something was there, sitting on my bed. The air grew colder, and I felt it on my skin, an icy presence brushing against me without touching. My body screamed to run, but I couldn't move. I was pinned by fear. Every second felt stretched, endless, as though time itself refused to pass. I kept telling myself not to look, not to give it the satisfaction of knowing I knew it was there. And then, the worst sensation of all, the weight shifted again, slowly creeping closer to where I lay. The mattress groaned under its movement, dipping beside my legs, then my waist, then higher, until it felt like whatever it was had lowered itself right next to me, inches from my body. I couldn't hear breathing, couldn't smell anything strange, but the pressure was undeniable. It was as though someone invisible had climbed into bed with me. My chest tightened, my mind racing in circles. I waited for something to happen. For the moment it would touch me, whisper to me, reveal itself in some horrible way. But nothing came. Only the silent, crushing weight and the terrible knowledge that I was no longer alone. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just lay there under the blanket, frozen, counting every second until the faint light of morning finally crept in through the blinds. When the sun rose, the weight vanished, the mattress lifted, and I was alone again, or at least, I thought I was. The morning after that first night, I tried to convince myself it had all been a nightmare. The bed felt normal again, the apartment quiet in the daylight. I checked every corner, every shadowed nook, even the hallway mirror, but there was nothing to prove that someone or something had been there with me. Still, the unease clung to my skin, settling deep into my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that the apartment itself had changed overnight. The air was heavier, colder, as though it carried a weight no one else could see. I moved through the room slowly, touching the walls, making sure doors were locked. They were. Everything appeared normal, but normal felt different now. The silence was sharper, more oppressive, as though it was listening. I kept glancing at the mirror in the hallway, telling myself not to, but I couldn't stop. Something about it called to me, as if it held secrets that refused to be ignored. That evening, the feeling of being watched returned stronger than before. I passed the hallway mirror again, and my stomach dropped. My reflection didn't move with me. I stopped, heart thudding, staring at it. My body kept walking past, but the figure in the glass stayed behind, frozen, its eyes locked on mine. unblinking. There was a faint, unnatural smile curling its lips, just a hint, but enough to twist my stomach into knots. I wasn't smiling. I hadn't made a face. And yet there it was. I staggered back, hand pressed against the wall for support. My reflection finally moved again, slowly, deliberately, almost mocking me. I wanted to break the glass, to smash it into pieces, but fear rooted me in place. I couldn't tear my eyes away. There was something in that smile, something patient and cruel, like it had been waiting for me to notice. I ran to the bathroom, splashing water on my face, trying to wake myself from whatever illusion I had fallen into. My reflection there was normal, perfectly normal. No delay, no twisted smile, just me staring back. I let out a shaky breath and turned away. Maybe the hallway mirror was cursed, or maybe my mind was fracturing. Either way, I didn't want to face it again. That night, I avoided the hallway, stayed in my bedroom, keeping the lights on. But sleep wouldn't come. Every creak of the building sounded like footsteps, every distant noise amplified into something terrifying. Then I heard the softest scrape, like nails dragging across a hard surface. It came from the hallway. My blood ran cold. I stayed perfectly still, listening. The sound stopped suddenly, then started again, closer this time, as if it had moved down the corridor. I must have fallen asleep eventually, because I woke to a sharp knock. Or was it a tap? My head was spinning. I looked toward the hallway mirror from the bed, and my heart froze. The glass was dark, almost black, and I couldn't see my reflection at all. Panic gripped me. I wanted to scream, to run, to escape the apartment, but something held me there, glued to the bed. A faint movement appeared in the mirror, too slow, too deliberate. A pale hand pressed against the glass from the other side, long fingers dragging downward like they were searching for something or someone. I couldn't move, couldn't even breathe properly. The hand lingered, inches from the surface, but it felt impossibly close, as if it could reach through and touch me. I stumbled backward, tripping over the rug, heart racing. My mind screamed that I should leave, that I should get out of the apartment immediately. But when I reached the door, it was as if a force pushed me back, holding me inside. I turned toward the mirror again. The hand was gone, but the shadowed outline of a figure remained, pale and distorted, watching me from within the glass. I spent the rest of the night staring at it, unable to sleep, unable to stop checking, unable to convince myself I wasn't losing my mind. The mirror wasn't just reflecting me anymore. It was alive. It moved. It watched. It waited. And now, I realized with a shiver, it was patient, very patient. Just before dawn, I dared to look one last time. My stomach dropped, and my breath caught. My reflection was no longer just me, no longer human. The face staring back had sunken eyes, hollowed cheeks, and a faint, terrible smile that promised something I didn't want to imagine. And then, slowly, impossibly slowly, it raised a hand and tapped on the glass. One deliberate tap. That night, I couldn't sleep. The apartment felt alive in ways I couldn't explain. The air was thick, almost suffocating, pressing against my skin like an unseen hand. I stayed awake for hours, lying in bed and staring at the ceiling, listening for every tiny noise. Every creak, every thump, every whisper of movement felt amplified, as if the building itself were conspiring to terrify me. I kept thinking of the mirror in the hallway, the way my reflection had smiled at me with that unnatural, patient expression. It wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was something else, something that watched and waited. I decided to leave the apartment for a while, to escape the suffocating dread. I grabbed my coat, my bag, and headed for the door, but as soon as my hand touched the knob, it wouldn't turn. I tried again, harder this time, twisting and jerking, but it was as if the door had fused with the frame. Panic surged through me. I pounded on the wood with my fists, screaming, but my voice seemed to vanish before it reached the air. I could hear nothing but my own frantic heartbeat thundering in my ears. The apartment had trapped me. I was stuck inside with whatever was lurking in the shadows. I sank to the floor, back against the door, trying to calm myself. I forced myself to breathe, counting each inhale and exhale, but the fear only grew. My eyes drifted toward the hallway, toward the mirror, and I froze. The glass was darker now, almost black, as if it had swallowed all the light around it. Shapes moved inside, too fast and flickering too erratically to make out clearly. Faces appeared and vanished in an instant, twisted and unrecognizable, some screaming silently, some staring with eyes too large and hollow to belong to any human. Then I saw it. Among the swirling, distorted faces, one face was unmistakable mine, but it wasn't just me. My eyes were blackened, my lips twisted into that same faint smile I had seen before, and I realized with a cold dread that this version of me was watching me, waiting, and moved differently than I did, in jerks and pauses that felt almost mechanical, but its gaze was locked on mine. I couldn't look away. I felt as though it could reach through the glass, touch me, pull me in, and I was powerless to stop it. The mirror pulsed, faintly at first, then more strongly, like it was breathing. I could feel the air around it shifting, vibrating with some invisible energy. I wanted to smash it, to throw something at it, to break the glass into a million pieces, but my hands wouldn't obey me. I was rooted to the spot, trapped in a nightmare, that I could neither escape nor wake from. Hours passed, though I have no idea how many. Time lost all meaning. I stayed crouched on the floor, staring at the mirror as the faces inside continued their endless, silent dance of horror. My own face shifted, twisted, and split into multiple versions of myself. Some versions were screaming, others weeping, some with eyes wide in terror, some grinning with a cruelty that made my stomach turn. I realized with dawning horror that these weren't just reflections, they were fragments of me. Scattered, watching, trapped. Then I felt it again. The weight on the bed. Though I wasn't there anymore, the memory of it lingered in my body, pressing down on me from behind. I glanced around the apartment, heart racing. I was alone, yet not alone. Something invisible moved in the corners of the rooms, just beyond my vision. I could feel its presence, cold and deliberate, as though it was circling me, studying me, waiting for the moment to strike. Finally, I forced myself to stand. My legs shook violently and my vision blurred, but I had to face it. I walked slowly toward the hallway mirror, each step echoing in the oppressive silence. The glass rippled slightly as I approached, and I realized with a shiver that it wasn't reflecting my image at all. It was showing me something else entirely. My own face stared back, but wrong, twisted, pale, lifeless, with eyes that seemed too old for the face they occupied. And then the worst part, it raised a hand and tapped on the glass, deliberately, slowly, and the sound echoed in my head like a drumbeat of doom. I stumbled backward, heart pounding, my mind screaming at me to run, to escape. But the door wouldn't open, the walls felt closer, and the air was heavy with something that smelled like iron and rot. The figure in the mirror watched me, smiling, as if enjoying my terror. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished, leaving the glass dark and empty. I knew, deep down, it wasn't gone, it never left. It was waiting, patient, hungry. Days passed, though I had no way of knowing for sure. The apartment had begun to feel like a living thing, its walls breathing, its floors shifting under invisible weight. I stopped trying to leave. Every time I approached the door, it resisted, as if the building itself were holding me inside. I no longer cared about the outside world. There was only the apartment and the mirror, and both seemed to tighten their grip on me with every passing hour. I stopped eating, stopped sleeping. The fear consumed every thought. Every sound became amplified. The creak of a floorboard, the whisper of the wind outside, the faintest groan of the building. Each noise sent my heart racing, my body trembling as I tried to convince myself it was normal. But nothing about this was normal. I was no longer simply living in an apartment. I was trapped inside, something alive, something that had been waiting for me. The mirror had become my obsession. I couldn't avoid it. Even when I stayed in my room, I found myself drawn to the hallway, unable to resist glancing at it. And every time I looked, it changed. The surface darkened, thickening into a liquid-like blackness. Faces moved inside it, distorted and grotesque. Some stared at me with hollow eyes, others twisted their mouths into silent screams, and among them was always one face I recognized, my own. But it was wrong. It had sunken cheeks, black eyes, and that same faint, cruel smile. I couldn't look away, couldn't tear my gaze from it. It wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was a presence. It moved independently, sometimes stepping forward as I stepped back, sometimes remaining still when I moved. It followed me when I walked, watched me when I slept, and waited silently in the corners when I thought no one was looking. I began to realize with growing horror that the mirror wasn't showing me, I was inside it. Piece by piece, it was taking me apart. Every glance, every second I spent watching it, I felt myself slipping further away from the real world. One night I woke to find myself standing in front of the mirror without remembering how I got there. My hand was already pressed against the glass, as if it had a will of its own. The surface rippled beneath my touch, soft and cold, and a shiver ran through me. I could feel something on the other side, gripping my hand, cold and insistent. My reflection looked back at me, and for the first time, its smile widened, stretching unnaturally across its face. The hand that mirrored mine pressed harder against the glass, and I realized it wasn't just copying MIT, was trying to pull me in. I stumbled back, heart racing, but the apartment felt smaller now. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with a metallic taste. Shadows moved in the corners of my vision, always just out of reach, always watching. The apartment was no longer just a building. It was a cage, a trap designed for me alone. I could feel the mirror's hunger, patient and eternal, waiting for the moment to claim me completely. Days, or was it hours, blurred together. I stopped keeping track. I barely noticed the passage of time anymore. The mirror became the center of my existence, its dark surface calling to me, whispering silently, promising things I didn't want to know. And every time I looked, the faces inside grew clearer, more distinct. Among them were versions of me I didn't recognize, gaunt and hollow-eyed, drenched in shadow, twisted in pain. They were trapped, just as I was, staring at the living world they had been torn from. And then, I realized the most horrifying truth of all. My own reflection wasn't just a copy of me. It was the beginning of the end. It had already started replacing me. piece by piece, and I could feel myself fading. My thoughts, my body, even my voice felt lighter, as though I were becoming nothing more than a shadow on the other side of the glass. I tried to fight it, tried to tear myself away, but it was too strong, patient, and endless. The mirror wasn't just a window, it was a predator, and I was its prey. That night, as I leaned closer to the mirror, I saw it more clearly than ever before. The reflection raised its hand again, slow and deliberate, tapping on the glass. And then, impossibly, it smiled wider, the smile of someone who already knew they had one. I stumbled back, heart pounding, and the lights flickered. The air grew icy, pressing against my skin. The faces inside the mirror shifted, all turning to watch me, all smiling that same twisted, patient smile. I knew, deep down, that I was no longer the one watching. I was the one being watched. And as the first light of dawn struggled through the blinds, I realized the truth. I was fading, slipping into the mirror, leaving only the hollow apartment behind. And in that reflection, standing where I had once been, smiling at the world that was no longer mine, was someone or something wearing my face. I don't know how long I've been trapped in this apartment now. Time has lost all meaning. Days and nights blend together into one endless stretch of darkness and dread. The air tastes metallic and stale, and every breath feels heavier than the last. I barely notice the passage of hours anymore. There is only the mirror and the knowledge that it has claimed more than just my attention. The apartment feels alive in ways I never imagined. The walls seem to pulse, almost imperceptibly, as though something behind them is pressing to get out. The floors groan under weight that isn't mine. Shadows gather in corners and along the edges of the rooms, watching, waiting, whispering in a language I can't hear but somehow understand. Every time I move, I feel the pressure of eyes on me. From every reflective surface, from every polished piece of metal, even from the faint glint of light on the floor. The mirror is the worst. It has become the center of my existence. I can't avoid it. Even when I try to close my eyes, I see it in the dark behind my eyelids, its surface alive with the faces of the trapped, the distorted, the hollowed versions of myself. They shift and move, some screaming silently, some grinning with a cruelty that is almost unbearable. And always, among them, is the version of me that doesn't belong, the one with black eyes and that terrible, patient smile, the one that knows everything about me and waits for the moment to finish what it has started. I try to remember the outside world, the sun, the streets, the faces of people I once knew, but those memories feel distant, fading. It's as if I am no longer part of it, no longer real in that space. I am here, in this apartment, in this nightmare, and the mirror is consuming me, piece by piece. My reflection is no longer my own. My thoughts feel borrowed, my hands feel lighter, my voice distant. I am becoming a ghost inside my own body, just another face among the many trapped inside the glass. I've stopped trying to leave. The door refuses to open, the walls close in, and even if I could escape, I don't know if the world outside would recognize me. The mirror doesn't just reflect, it replaces, and I can feel it happening with every passing moment. The more I resist, the faster it takes pieces of me, twisting and reshaping them until the person I was no longer exists. Last night I walked past the hallway mirror again. My hand reached out, almost instinctively, pressing against the glass. The surface rippled beneath my touch, soft and impossibly cold. On the other side, my own reflection looked back, not just a reflection, but a presence, alive, waiting. It raised its hand slowly, deliberately, and tapped. Once, twice, 3 times. I felt that tap inside my chest, like a warning, like a claim. I pulled my hand back, but it clung, as if the glass itself had learned to hold me. I realized then, with a terror I cannot describe, that I am no longer entirely here. Part of me is already inside, trapped among the other faces, the other fragments of myself. The reflection I once trusted, the one that imitated my every movement, is now me or almost me. And the person standing in the hallway, wearing my face, is the version the world sees. I am fading, I am slipping, and yet, somehow, I am still aware. I can see, hear, feel, and think, but not in the way I used to. I am a spectator in my own life, trapped between this world and the one behind the glass. The apartment hums with its quiet, terrible life, and the mirror waits. Always waiting. This morning I glanced at the reflection again. My eyes widened in disbelief. The mirror was empty. No face, no figure, no movement, just a dark, still surface. For a moment, I thought I had escaped, that somehow the curse had passed, that I was free. And then I saw it. Behind me, on the floor, faint scratches etched into the wood, forming words I didn't write. We are still here. The room grew colder instantly. I spun around, heart pounding, but there was no one. The mirror remained silent and dark, but I could feel the weight of 100 eyes on me. I tried to scream, but no sound came. My body trembled, and I realized the truth. The mirror isn't done with me. It never will be. I am here, trapped, fading. My reflection walks free in the world, smiling, living, wearing my face. And behind the glass, countless others wait, patient, hungry, eternal. The apartment is quiet again now. too quiet, and I know, in the deepest part of me, that it is only a matter of time before the mirror calls for me completely and there will be nothing left.